All right. Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to the show. It is me, and oh no, my phone is talking at me. Okay. Well, hello again. Second try. So today we are continuing with our what is it called? The mathematical challenges to evolution, or something along those lines. Um, Guys who aren't biologists talking about biology. So today I have with me my host and co-host, Peter.
Hello?
Welcome back.
A guy who knows nothing about biology going to talk about biology? I'm just saying.
Okay. We're talking about three guys talking about biology who don't know anything about biology, so it's fine. It's all good. And then we have Nestlig, who is one of my editors on my scripts. Welcome.
Glad to be back.
Glad to have you. Let's see, in the side chat right now, we have Brian Stevens, PZ Myers, DM Wing, Vesta, Icarus, Dalton, Jamie E. Well, hello everybody. Welcome. All right. Okay. All right. Well, so we're watching this video that's what is it? It's a few years old, right? It was made several years ago.
Yeah.
And it's got it's some some YouTube channel interviewing Stephen Meyer, who's a philosopher, David Gelernter, who's like a software engineer, and
the Hoover,
David Berlinski, who's a mathematician.
The Hoover Institute. Which I think is appropriate because Hoovers always suck up the garbage. So
I guess they're trying to be like a sort of like PragerU. I don't know. I haven't watched their channel for anything else except this. So I guess I could look at it, just kind of see, because we have there.
And I think that the title of the video Hoover is something like "How Math Proves That You Know Nothing About Biology."
Yeah, who governs emergency powers in the time of COVID? That's a video they're releasing soon. Bjorn Lomborg on climate change. Okay. The history of the Labor Party. Dropping money from helicopters. Economist John Cochrane on inflation. So it's basically PragerU, but a different PragerU, essentially. That's what it is.
The non-university part of PragerU.
Exactly.
Oh wait, well, here's where they suck up the garbage, and PragerU is where they redistribute it. Is that
might be true?
See.
But Peter, they don't like redistribution of anything. That's socialism, don't you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. I forgot about that.
So you gotta pull up your trash by its bootstraps. That's how that works. So
and we got Neil. We got Neil in chat. Hey Neil.
Yep. Neil, we got Neil, the 604 atheist, who joined. Omar Zach also joined. Welcome. Origami Swami, hello. And if you guys aren't subscribbled, and I think all of you are subscribbled, but if you aren't, then do it. Do it now. Join us. All right. A creationist engineer. I know, Salem hypothesis strikes again. So, well, I said he's like a software engineer. He's like a coder or something like that. So he, I don't know if he deals with like the technology, the like hardware side of it. I think I don't know. I do not know. At any rate, he's not a biologist, and he doesn't really form coherent sentences.
It means that he knows everything there is to know about DNA if he's a software engineer, because it's all about coding, right?
Very true. Correct. Exactly. It is all about coding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Gelernter's parts are the funniest because he's passed a question and he either deflects it to somebody else or he gives this really long, winding, ridiculous answer and the other participants look like they're going to strangle him. So those are the only two answers you get from him. So, all right. Do we have anything we want to add before we jump right in?
Let's get into the stupid.
All right, let's do.
It starts off. I think
I'm gonna turn off my camera since I don't really need it.
I went back a few seconds, so it starts off really nicely.
Okay.
If I want to direct the assembly of an animal, that I've got to get in there early before they've finished putting it together, putting all the the hoofs on and getting the wool on. If he's a sheep, I like sheep. I have to say, I have to get in there early before they start building them, so they don't accidentally build a mouse or a leopard or.
Oh, that's right. We talked
zebra.
about this last time and how like absolutely bonkers nonsensical this statement or this series of statements is or are, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is he even saying? What does he even mean when he's saying this? What is he referring to?
From what I get, he wants to interfere with DNA so it doesn't accidentally start building a mouse when two horses have procreated or two sheep have procreated. I have no clue what he's talking about, really. I'm just guessing.
It's like I don't. The thing is, like, normally with intelligent design people, or with creationists in general, normally you kind of know where their argument's going. Like, we're familiar with most of the major arguments that creationists make. I have no earthly idea what he is saying.
But just
when he says this, I don't know what he's going for.
Just look at him when he's talking about this, the drama that he puts into this particular part of the video. I mean, to him, it's really serious. That's obvious, and I love the guy who's hosting this, who basically looks into the camera with an idea of what the fuck are you even talking about, which is basically how we look right now. Okay. Continue.
Yeah. So Brian said he can't make it. He's on the commute home right now. But I told him, join us next time or something. Just okay. Yeah, we can keep going.
Okay.
Sheep get bones this high, and we need a nose about this big, and we need sheep ears, and we need.
I'm Dutch. Did he just say sheep get boned this high, or did he say bones?
I think he said sheep get bones this high. And they get ears.
So
I guess maybe the argument, maybe he's like, I don't know. We'll just let him finish and then we'll respond to it.
What are bones this high? I'm just asking.
Well, they're short. They're little sheep.
Yeah, depends on whether or not the sheep is standing on the ground or on anything else. But
I guess.
Let's see.
All right, let's let him finish and then we'll see when he responds.
We need wool. Get all this stuff together. So I've got to act early. Now, if I'm going to create a new species, I'm going to mutate, and instead of building a sheep, I'm going to build a little horse, because horses come in sheep size. What do they call them?
Wait.
Shetland ponies.
Wait. Did he really just say that when a sheep becomes a new species, it becomes like a small horse?
Yeah.
Did he just say that? Nestle, did I hear that correctly?
That's what I get.
I'm sorry, I'm eating and I'm chewing and
it's fine.
everything.
Okay, chat. Did I hear that correctly, chat? I don't want to straw man him, but it sounds like he said that when sheep become a new species, they become something like a small horse. That's what it sounded like to me.
Well, what he said was if he wanted to make a new species, he had to jump in early. And from what he was saying, it is the process in building a sheep, then diverting it into making a sheep-sized horse. I can't
imagine.
Is this like a homunculus fallacy? Like you know when people thought that the sperm contained tiny human
right?
Like,
yes, that's what this is. Yeah, it's like when it becomes adult size or whatever, or juvenile size, I guess. It's like you change it while it's still in the sperm, while the little homunculus is still in there, and so it just comes out like a fully formed new animal.
PZ answered your question, by the way. He says, no, I can't tell. My brains are leaking out of my ears.
That is fair. I can't even, if somebody asked me to like explain how a computer works, I would simply say I don't know. That is not my area of expertise. I wouldn't want to make a fool of myself trying to explain how a computer works. David Gelernter apparently never thought about that. He just assumed, like, I read a book and now I understand all of biology. And then he goes and makes an argument that it's really kind of like the crocoduck argument, isn't it? Like whole species coming out of like a different parent. That's basically what this is.
Yeah. And by the way, Jackson, you are excused when you say I don't know how a computer works, because basically what a computer chip is an array of transistors, and those are explained in the theory of electronics. So it's just a theory.
It is just a theory. It's not real.
It's not real. It's just a theory.
You can't teach it in schools here in the US.
No.
It's just a theory.
Yeah, it's just a theory.
I would not try to speak on a subject that I'm not familiar with, but creationists have never had that problem. They will just run off on random, all sorts of different fields.
To be
creationism
fair,
tramples on every field.
To be fair, I'm here speaking on a subject that I don't know a whole lot about. But unlike a creationist, I don't pretend that I know everything about it, and
I guess that's fair.
And make other people believe that I know everything about it and that I'm 100% correct. Because, hey, I've been caught talking bullshit before. I mean, on pretty much any topic. So the idea is that if you are corrected by someone who actually does know what they're talking about, then you need to adopt your position accordingly. And that is what these people not only can do, but won't do, which is the bigger problem.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. I guess we'll keep going.
Soldiering on.
To do that, there may be a mutation that makes me order purple wool, or the wrong color hooves, or a stomach that won't quite fit. But a mutation that is going to recreate the creature in such a way that it's a different creature.
Recreate a creature.
Farmers tell me almost certainly likely to be fatal. I mean, a mutation that makes a huge difference and that starts putting.
I agree with him on that. By the way,
I mean, sure, that probably is going to be fatal. Yeah.
If it worked the way that he's explaining it, that would be fatal. Although I would like sheep with purple wool. I mean, who wouldn't?
And just, oh my goodness, it would rebuild them. A mutation that rebuilds an organism as a different organism. That's what he said. That is what he said. That is so.
I think,
well, Jackson, we see that happening all the time. You walk past a field and you see a sheep dissolving and then coming back up as a tiny horse. I mean, haven't you seen that before? Yes. I mean, I see that a lot when I'm drunk.
I think it's where we. Oh, sorry. Go
ahead. Yeah.
All right. I think this is where you need to, where we can mention something called facilitated variation, which is basically there is this naive view that the whole body plan is like strictly laid out. Like, for example, if for some reason my arm bone gets a few inches longer, my muscles won't accommodate for that variation unless there is another mutation that will increase my muscle mass. But that's not how it works. Like, if for any reason, even without a mutation, like if I do some surgery on my arm that makes it a few inches longer, the muscles around it will accommodate for that variation, and that's basically what it's going on here too. So it's not like one mutation breaks everything, and it's actually interesting. Like if you look up the evolution of you know that in birds, in the leg bone, like one leg bone got shorter. How do you call it again? The fibula, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, like
tibia, fibula.
Yeah, like one of the leg bones became shorter, and it lost its connection to the other bone. But in order to compensate for it, a new muscle was basically grown around it automatically.
Okay.
So that's very interesting to note.
I think, Nestle, that the level at which you are talking is many light years above where Gelernter is.
Right, I know.
Because you are correct.
I'm not speaking to I'm not speaking to him, I think, but just for anybody who's interested. Yeah.
Well, I don't think they'd I don't think they would watch this channel anyway. They're too afraid of us. Come after us. Come get us. No. Yeah, you're right though. So okay, we can keep going.
All right.
PZ said like they knew nothing about plasticity. Actually, I don't think so. I think he's thinking plastic animals and then recreating those from the same materials.
Oh,
so
speaking
maybe he got that wrong.
The way BMP affects beak size in finches. Actually, the next the one I'm working on now. I'm working on the script for the Galapagos finch's tail. I was going to record the other one, the one that came before it, the lava lizard's tail this morning, but stuff came up. So, oh well. Alrighty, moving on.
The head on backwards, it starts giving him 17 tails or too many internal organs, or forgets the blood or something like that. Because this is right early on that I'm acting when I'm doing tremendously important things. And if I make a slip at this all-important stage, I'm not going to make a little error in the density of the fur. It's going to be a big error in the design of the internal and the external that makes this creature what it is. That's an informal, intuitive explanation.
But
and Steve can give you or David can give you
a good argumentative disjunction. If you talk about major changes, if they come late in development, they're not going to make a difference. The organism.
What do you mean late in development? What do you
have
mean?
more lavish eyebrows.
Right. Okay.
If they come early, they can't make a difference because inevitably they destroy the organism.
Too many things
what does that
downstream
mean?
depend on those early cell divisions.
Let's talk about this for a moment. So, the confused plasticity with plasticine, maybe. Okay, so let's talk about this for a moment. So, when they say these changes that are coming late versus early in development, right? These are all things that are under evolutionary pressures, right? It's not like evolutionary pressures get less as development goes on. Like it matters. All of it matters. The beak size of of finches, the fur density, that all matters. That's all subject to evolutionary pressure. Just because it's not like the shape of the nervous system, or how many cells are in this part of the body or something, doesn't mean it's not important. But also those other parts are also subject to selective pressures and do change gradually as well, right? Like if you look take an example, one I was thinking about earlier this week, like the digestive system of different mammals, right? So herbivorous mammals tend to have these very long digestive tracts with very large cecum or cecoappendicular complex. And the reason is cellulose is very tough. You have to have gut bacteria to help you digest it. And so you have to have this really long digestive tract to do all that. Whereas carnivores, it's much easier to digest meat, so you don't need a long digestive tract. But switching back and forth is not hard. It's been done many, many times over, right? So relative to other great apes, which are more herbivorous than us, we have a shorter digestive tract. Pandas have like a shorter digestive tract relative to their more carnivorous relatives. These sorts of changes happen back and forth and have many times in the evolutionary history of life. It doesn't, not everything is like macro mutations, right? They act like all evolutionary change is these, these very rare macro mutations. Like, no, that's not it at all. And in fact, when we do the Finch's tale, one of the major points of the Finch, in fact, the central issue, is that evolutionary change occurs way faster than what we think about. Like when you model, or when researchers model evolutionary change, it occurs way faster in models than what we see in nature. And the reason is, in nature, selective pressures are not always continuous, right? They don't act continuously on a population for like millions and millions of years. You have a selective pressure that goes in one direction for a while, and then maybe you have a reverse, and then so there's selection in the opposite direction. And so for the Finch's tale, spoiler alert, that has happened. There's selection for finches to stay within a range of beak sizes some years, but then that range can switch other years. So yes, while you're still going sort of generally in one direction, you can have switches back in the other direction. And that's true of, well, that's true of like most things probably. Like there was a paper I read on, I think it was Gingrich, 1985. He was talking about Hyopsidas, which is this small early ungulate mammal. And Hyopsidas, the lineage, the body size, the average body size generally got larger over time, but in some cases you actually had switches to them getting smaller in size. So the point is, evolutionary change is actually rather fast. It does not require macromutations, though those happen in some cases. So I don't know. You guys want to add anything else in here?
Well, I think you got good enough. But I if I may, I want to add some more context to my previous statement. Like I linked the paper to what I mentioned before about the bird's leg, and I just to read a few lines. The paper says bird's legs are characterized by an elongated tibia and the reduced fibula. So I got the bones mistaken. It's the fibula that got shorter. That has completely lost its contact with the tarsal joint. With the reduction of the fibula, a novel skeletal element arose, the syndesmosis tibiofibularis, or STF for short, which connect the reduced fibula to the tibia. The functional reason for the origin of this new muscle is that the proximal fibula is still the insertion point of an important muscle. So basically, when the original contact was lost, there are new developmental pressures which made this new muscle develop. It's pretty interesting how you can get a new muscle by just losing a connection between two bones.
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty cool. So, okay, we ready?
So we're faced with a real destructive dilemma. Late, no good. Early, no good. Well, when? We've sort of exhausted the possibilities.
And I'm sure that David Gelernter wants to stick up for Darwin one more time and say he couldn't have known this.
This is not an attack on Darwin as a man or a thinker or a scientist, but it's the job of science to figure out what guesses are right and what are wrong. Scientists are paid for making guesses, not for making right guesses, but for making interesting, plausible ones. And if scientists, after the guess has been made, don't do their job, don't investigate the guess, don't do their best to figure out is it true or false, then we are false to science and we're betraying science.
I would like to pause for a moment just to kind of talk about that. I want to talk about that for a moment. Because, well, first of all, I would disagree that scientists are paid to make guesses. No, scientists are paid to follow evidence and make conclusions. They don't make guesses. Could you imagine just sitting around making guesses all day? That'd be ridiculous. But also,
well, if there's a job open for that, and I can make guesses all the day long. I mean, if I get paid for that, that would be a great job.
But the problem is, again, none of these guys are biologists, and so, and this isn't just a knock on them. I think this is kind of a knock on really the education system in general, which has also produced them. Is that biology actually has lots of variation. There's a lot of variation within existing organisms. And the idea that they seem to have that like organisms are just the same inside, I think that just stems from a failure really of the education system that they have had and it's also on them, of course. They have so little care about to do research that they're not looking at like, well, how do different organisms that they believe are connected by descent, why are they different and how do they differ? What are the reasons that these organisms are different? Like, I'm pretty sure that all three of them agree that like sheep and horses are actually related to each other. They shared some hooved common ancestor. Okay, that's fine. But whence cometh the differences between sheep and horses? Why is it that horses are part of one group and sheep are part of another, and they have like differences in their teeth and in which hooves they walk on, and all this other stuff? Why are those differences there, and where do they come from? Unless you want to argue that all species were like independently created, which pretty much nobody does anymore, except for your random creationist on Twitter.
There's actually a funny story. Like Ken Ham with a random poll. Ken Ham with a random poll on Twitter asking whether they believe species were created, and everybody says yes, species are individually created because they think kind means species.
Well, yeah, and the funny thing is, and actually Joel Duff is doing videos about this right now, is the young Earth evolutionists. And so it kind of seems like maybe Ham is trying to like walk back the amount of evolution that AIG allows. Because you have Kurt Wise on one end who's like, yeah, well, maybe modern whales came from Pakicetus that was on the Ark. Whereas Ken Ham, is maybe trying to be like, no, species were created individually, which that's a heck of a position to try to, hold on.
Ken Ham pushes kind back to family.
No. I don't think so.
Yes, he does.
So. Like, Ken Ham yes?
Yes.
Well,
yes.
AIG
which is kind of weird if he runs a poll and all of his followers think that a kind is a species, because that's not what AIG teaches.
Well, that's right. That's not what AIG teaches. But I wonder if Ham himself is trying to walk that back. If he's saying maybe we're giving too much, room to the evolutionists now, and so we need to kind of pull back how much evolution, quote, we accept.
So when you look at the look at the Ark encounter, where they have 1,400 animals listed as having been on the Ark, you have to push it back to
absolutely
to the family. So
I agree. I'm curious to see sort of where the whole young Earth evolutionist thing goes in the near future.
I mean, for Ken Ham, it depends on who he's talking to, because he will change positions faster than most people would change their socks and their underwear. So it all depends.
That's true. Yeah.
And most creationists do, by the way.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see where that kind of schism goes, or if it ends up being a schism. So, anyway.
Okay.
David Gelernter's essay, the evidence suggests to Meyer, who's seated with us today, that an intelligent designer must have been responsible. I can't accept intelligent design as Meyer presents it. Close quote. You also have seated next to you David Berlinski, who has said that his attitude toward intelligent design, and I'm quoting him, is warm but distant. It's the same attitude that I display toward my ex-wives.
Random close-ups.
So you have one man who can't accept it, another man who definitely wants to keep his distance.
That leaves Meyer out.
So well, I don't know. You want to start the easier case? Try to convince David? Tell us what... tell us what intelligent design is that distinguishes it from some kind of effort to sneak God in by some back door.
Sure.
It's literally that.
Parenthetically, just
It's in the
one
name.
word.
It's in the name, right? Intelligent design is literally sneaking God in. That's what that means. What do you
Well,
think the intelligence is? Name, and this is one of the things that really galls me, is when they put up the false little, oh, I don't know, could have been aliens. Bullcrap. Find me one person in your institution who thinks
but
aliens did any intelligent design. Find me one. Just
But
one. I'll give up that argument if they can find one.
Jackson, I can give you an argument. I mean, have you read the Bible? That's not an intelligent agent. So, there. Refute
There
me.
you go.
But it's
It was
not
aliens.
about. I don't think it's more about the individuals who may have some beliefs, but it's like unequivocal that the origins of the ID movement started with the Discovery Institute, who were explicitly in the 1990s and such a creationist organization.
And they were pro-theocracy. The Wedge document says that they are for theocracy. They want to get rid of materialism. They want to institute a religiously motivated government. That's what the Wedge document says.
Yep.
It like, and then there's that
also,
that quote that Dan Cardinal has, or he put it in one of his videos where I think it was Behe says like intelligent design is like an extension of his theology or something like that. Like they're open about it. I don't know why we're pretending like this is science. Go ahead. Sorry.
And it's also funny to see like the old banners of the Discovery Institute, like in the early 1990s or 80s. That it was like, oh, we see Adam.
Right, it's
God,
the Sistine Chapel
yeah,
painting. Right, exactly. Like who are
and
you
over,
trying to
over
fool?
time, and over time becomes less and less about.
Yeah,
they
it's
have
so
to adapt
silly.
to new selection pressures. It appears.
And that's true. And the funny thing about it is, like, my generation, Gen Z, and that's like, I don't know how old you are.
Are you Gen Z? I think I'm
I'm
just
the first year of
just
Gen
still
Z.
millennial.
I'm the first year of Gen Z.
All right,
so
I'm an older millennial probably. Then.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So Gen Z, my generation,
or younger.
is like the least religious generation in American history. So these guys are not. First of all, they're not appealing that much to adults. Let's be honest. Intelligent design is very minor compared to young Earth creationism, but they're also not appealing to my generation. And so I think it's going to be interesting to see how they try to twist in the wind in the coming decades, because it's not going to work, right? It is increasingly not working as people get young, or as you know, we have more and more people coming up. So are you a boomer, PZ? But
I am.
But so yeah, it's I don't know.
Boomer is more at this point. Boomer is a mindset and not not an age at this point.
Yeah, I think if you're born from what is it 40? Is it 45 to 65? I think is boomer. 1945 to 1965. I think is boomer. But still, I don't know what they're gonna do. Like they're just gonna fizzle out. I think in the next few decades, they have nowhere to go. Anyway, all right, we can keep going.
That's definitely not Steve's intention. In this book, in Intelligent Design, it's not a way to bring in a theological argument. It is a scientific
The last chapter of the book
purely,
is an altar call. He says, like, become a Christian in the last chapter. What are you talking about? Are you stupid? I'm sorry, keep going.
absolutely valid scientifically. One can agree with it or disagree with it, but one doesn't have to reject it insofar as theology making an illegal move, because that's not what he's doing.
That's not what you... Good.
Let me just sketch the argument briefly, and then we can just discuss it. The big discovery of the 1950s and 60s was that the DNA molecule encodes information in a roughly digital or alphabetic or typographic form.
Why do you use the term digital?
Well, because in computer science we have characters, zeros and ones.
I see.
This is Crick, 1957. It's the sequence hypothesis. He realized that the information in DNA, or the chemical subunits of DNA called nucleotide bases, were functioning like alphabetic characters in a written text, or like the zeros and ones in a section of computer code. That is to say, it's not,
because
it wasn't their
language
chemical properties that
famously
gave them
has
their
a bunch of words that mean absolutely nothing and don't do anything, but like formerly meant something, but we still have to use them all the time. I don't know. That's how language works, right?
Yeah, generally, I don't have a problem if you describe like genes as coding information for proteins.
Sure.
But when you make the argument that it's literally a code, then you run into problems. Like nucleotides are not letters; they are physical.
Right.
They are physical chemical things. Like they aren't abstract concepts like ones or zeros.
Right. But furthermore, like we don't use words in our language in like daily speaking that have no meaning, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't use words that have no meaning, but we have to insert them anyways. That's what you have in
Unless
DNA.
you're a politician.
I guess that's fair. But you have like lines and signs and pseudogenes in DNA that don't have any function. But we have to keep bringing them with us because we can't cut them out. Or they're not causing enough of an issue for our DNA that there's some selective pressure to remove them. So it's like it's like what you said. You can call it. You can say there's information in DNA, but you can't say it's literally a language.
Like I can also like in the way I can also say that if I have a room full of iron, wool, and also oxygen, I can say it contains information for making rust.
Mm-hmm.
In a way, like, all right,
yeah, that's fair. Yeah. Anyway, all right, we can keep going.
Yeah, sure.
function, but rather their specific arrangement in accord with an independent symbol convention, which was later explicated in the form of what we call the genetic code. So we had genetic text functioning according to a code.
So it really was a pure, it was pure information.
This is a genuine information storage system. Crick, by the way, was a code breaker in World War II. So this is fascinating, is an application of the information sciences to molecular biology.
It is cool.
Now what
this
is the argument that I make, is that what we know from experience is that information, whether we find it in a hieroglyphic
requires a
inscription
mind,
or a paragraph in a book,
radio
or
signal,
information embedded in.
I have to stop. So PZ.
He's
PZ.
the same goddamn phrase.
The door-to-door guys do identify as elder such and such. PZ said he was an elder in the chat. Sorry to have to derail this.
Well,
I need door-to-door PZ Myers. I'd like to see that happen.
Hello, would you like to buy my cell biology text?
Do you have some time
It'll help you.
spent to let me talk to you about evolution? That would be a real good thing. Sorry.
They can be like, let me tell you about this time I met Ray Comfort. Sorry, PZ, we're making fun of you. All right. All right, keep going.
A radio signal, or in a section of computer code. Whenever we find information and we trace it back to its ultimate source, we always come to a mind, not a material process. And what I do in the book, in Darwin's Doubt, and my prior book, Signature in the Cell, is show.
Okay, I have to jump in. If that might be correct, but if you're going to look at a chemical process, which DNA basically is, do you get the same result if you go back? Is there an intelligent designer making chemical processes? Or have you one example, please? I'd love to see that.
Well, it's not even correct. When he says information, right? He's saying, like, he's comparing thing, and Dapper and I talked about this with Jeremy Spry on Dapper's channel. He's saying like, here are things that we know, have human origins, and here are things that literally no one has ever seen humans make. Humans don't make DNA. We've never, we didn't invent DNA, right? DNA existed prior to us. And he's like, well, since DNA functions sort of in a way, kind of like how we think about these other things that humans definitely made.
But it doesn't, because every code you can think of is to convey information from one intelligent agent to another. DNA does not do that.
Yeah, I suppose.
So if you want to compare it to a code,
even still,
then show me who's building embryos, because that's the person decoding the code.
Well, I would still argue you don't even need to go there. I would just say, well, here's a bunch of examples of unintelligent, chemical processes resulting in new information, quote. And then the argument is dead. It's over. That's the end.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not going to talk about that. That's why they don't talk about like the process of evolution in their books. They're not going to do a step-by-step of like, this is, what mutations generate. Here's a bunch of examples. And they don't do that. Evolutionary biologists have to do that when they write books, because we're trying to honestly explain the actual data, as opposed to Meyer and the others who just don't. They're just liars. So
PC got at least a fruit basket from
Ray. Which confirms the fact that Ray Comfort is a basket case. Just saying.
I hope it was like only bananas. I hope that was the only food in there.
I think it was everything but bananas, because Ray needs those for his presentations.
He also sent one of those to Hannah and Jake
he
a long
keeps
time
the
ago.
bananas for himself, so yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We can keep going.
Okay.
That these undirected evolutionary mechanisms that have been proposed as an explanation for the origin of information fail for various reasons. We've talked about the reason the Darwinian mechanism fails, because it can't search the space when it's so vast. The odds are overwhelmingly against it. So if we from a materialistic evolutionary standpoint...
What is searching the space?
So he's referring to the Douglas Axe argument,
always.
Well, it wasn't just Axe; it was also Robert Sauer, and there were a few other people who did sort of similar things. All their numbers, where they get like 10 to the negative 60th or something like that, or 10 to, I think Axe was like 10 to the negative 72nd or something like that. They're wrong, right? We talked to Liam Longo, and he was like, no, the number is way bigger than that. Or the number it's a lot easier to traverse the space than that. Like, instead of like 10 to the 72nd, it's like 10 to the 12th or something like that, isn't it? But also, you don't even need to go there again. You can just show, like, experimentally, you can show how mutations change, right? There are like hundreds and hundreds of experiments in the literature where researchers will artificially select like some function, right? So one of my favorite examples is these researchers took E. coli, and it has this this protein called a recombinate. Is it a recombinase? Yeah, I think so. So basically, it cuts out a section of its DNA. And so the researchers were trying to evolve the E. coli to have a recombinase which could cut out HIV out of its DNA. So the sequence, the nucleotide sequence that the E. coli recombinase could recognize was, I think, about 50% similar to the relevant HIV sequence. So the researchers progressively evolved. So like selection and mutation, they just selected populations of E. coli that were increasingly better at removing this HIV sequence from their DNA. And after it was like 160 generations or something like that, or iterations of the cycle of mutation, selection, they did it. They managed to do it. The recombinase evolved to be able to now remove this new sequence, which it could not remove before. They tried it. They tried to get the recombinase to remove the sequence originally. It could not do it. So what? They just, magically, extraordinarily, luckily managed to like find the, the correct sequence? No. The problem isn't reality. The problem is the math. Axe's math was just bad, right? He just took a sequence. He took a sequence on a protein, or sorry, a sequence of amino acids in a protein, and assumed basically that anything that doesn't have like this sequence would just fail. Which again, it's not how that works, because you can in a lot of proteins you can replace lots of the amino acids without affecting the actual functioning of the protein. And so, yeah, the math is just bad. Like the actual examples in the lab show that it just doesn't work. The math doesn't work. You can also look at wild examples. So like in garter snakes, like Thamnophis, there are different mutations which conferred the ability of these garter snakes to not be susceptible to newt tetrodotoxin. Now, the mutation was a point mutation, which very slightly changed these sodium transporters in their nerve cells. And what that did was it prevented the tetrodotoxin from binding to those sodium channels like it could originally, which is what causes paralysis. There's a very, very minor mutation, which had a very minor effect. It very slightly changed this channel. But the result was that these snakes are now immune to this toxin. Now, is it just luck that, of all the possible mutations, that's like the only one that works? No. In fact, there are these different species of these garter snakes of Thamnophis have mutated their sodium transporters in different ways, achieving the same result via different mutations. So, yeah, it's just bad math. It's just bad math. That's all it is. Their examples have no basis in reality. We talked about that with the waiting time problem last week, right? No, or week before last. Right? There's no basis in reality for these. It's just sort of pie in the sky numbers that they deal with. Anything else you guys want to add?
I had something, but I need to find the paper on that first before I make a comment. Yeah.
I was curious when Myers just said it is searching. What's the it that he thinks is searching?
Mutation. So he's saying like you have a sequence an amino acid sequence that works. And so if you have a mutation, so when organisms are like, they're born, they have a certain set of mutations. He's saying that like if they have mutations at all in that region, then it just won't work, which I don't know how that works, given that like every individual has mutations. I don't know how that works, but whatever.
I was just curious because he implies that there's an intelligence at work in this, because it is searching for some. I mean, words do have meaning. So
yes, and he's explaining it badly, but he's just referring to the population is unconsciously exploring different mutations. So individuals are having mutations, and then these mutations are either harmful or beneficial or neutral. That's what he means when he says it is exploring. He means the population is exploring the mutational space.
Okay. Well, let's.
But he's just dumb, so that's why.
Let's continue, because he looks very angry on screen, looking at me.
We don't have any explanation for the origin of the information that's necessary to build new biological form. And yet we do know from our uniform and repeated experience, which is the basis of all scientific reasoning, of a source of information, of a cause of the origin of information. That cause is intelligence or mind.
He has the same,
And so what
like,
I've argued
6
in
lines he
both Darwin's
says.
doubt and signature in the cell is that what we're seeing in life is evidence of the activity of a directing mind in the history of life.
David Berlinski, to quote the old saying, if you see a turtle on a fence post, you know it didn't get there by itself. Look around you.
Oh my
There's
God.
intelligence behind
Did he
this
really just use the look
creation
at the
we inhabit.
trees?
Yes. That's an easy
Yes.
one for a man like you, yes?
I guess you're not leaving me much to chew with. Not much.
You are a
teeth in that
contrary
argument.
man. What do you mean?
Well, I don't know. I mean, look, intelligence in the world, intelligence behind the world.
I'm relying
that's
on you
really
to answer
like-
this objection. Whatever he comes up with, you're going to be the one who answers, so get ready.
Meanest kisses at famine prices. It doesn't really, from my point of view, it doesn't really give us much. It's not yet a theory. I'm certainly prepared to
I
say there's
see.
a lot of intelligence manifest in the world, but at the same time, I think that doesn't really
Oh, it's a
say very
tautology
much.
to you.
It's
W-
not a
well,
tautology.
Look at this, it's information. Yes, it's information.
That's pretty good. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah, it's information. I recognize that. Information in some loose sense, maybe Shannon sense, maybe a more elegant formulation of information theory, but I'm much more persuaded by something that leads to a strong counterintuitive claim. For example, that the information is embedded in a topology in a certain way that makes it inevitable that certain life forms will emerge. That would be an interesting conclusion. And for a time, I thought there was such a mathematical construction. I don't think my
That's actually-
confidence
can we
was
pause for a moment?
entirely well-founded.
So, okay, so what he's referring to is in part of debate that went down between Stephen Jay Gould and Simon Conway Morris a few decades ago. Conway Morris is kind of the, and I try to keep this brief without going way too deep into it, but Conway Morris is kind of the opinion that certain organisms, certain life forms were inevitable, certain constructions of life were inevitable. Gould, on the other hand, was very contingent in his thinking, right? And in fact, one idea that was very important early on in punctuated equilibrium was this idea called Wright's rule, which is that speciation is stochastic with respect to selective pressures, which maybe it's possible, I guess. So Gould is very much on the stochastic contingency train, and I happen to agree with that. He, for instance, argues in Wonderful Life, like, could anyone have predicted that the endosymbiotic event would have occurred after 2 billion years? Like, no, that seems like it seems like it was contingent on these very improbable things occurring, right? 2 billion years for, like, bacteria is an extraordinarily long time. Something else like the extinction of the dinosaurs. That was highly contingent or entirely contingent on a meteor hitting the Earth, right? Could you have predicted that would happen? No. I do also kind of agree that some life forms probably are inevitable. Multicellularity is probably inevitable. If you start with, you have unicellular organisms, multicellularity will probably occur. And if it does, and you get something that has like an internal digestive tract, it will probably be kind of wormy. Beyond that, I don't really know. I don't really know where else you could make that argument go from there. But I think it's kind of interesting that, like, Berlinski is kind of dodging. Like, he's, I guess, agnostic, I guess is what he prefers to go by. But he's not really explaining why he doesn't favor this hypothesis, right? Because the interviewer is, like, clearly like religious, because he keeps trying to get, like, Steve to convince Berlinski and Gelernter but I don't know. He's trying to get Meyer to answer Berlinski, and Berlinski's like, I don't agree with intelligent design, but I'm not really going to say why. What do you guys think?
I have to be
You guys
honest.
agree with that or disagree?
I have ADD. I can't get past the idea. Every single time they zoom in on Berlinski, I get the idea that here's Lucius Malfoy, who just got a wardrobe makeover by Larry the Cable Guy, and is not interested in taking part in the conversation whatsoever, and just being condescending and vague.
It's prime meme material here.
Yeah.
Yeah, that may be true.
Did I leave the stove on?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, did I leave the stove on?
Let me make up some bullshit to answer your question.
We also
That's
have
the look.
Smitty. Hello, Smitty. Welcome. All right, we can keep going.
Okay.
But it was a good idea. But just to say that the world is charged with the grandeur of God, I could have said that before thinking about biology. It is. That's true.
David Gelernter, I'm quoting your essay again.
Cool, I guess.
If there was an intelligent designer, what was his strategy? How did he manage to back himself into so many corners, wasting energy on so many doomed organisms? What was his purpose?
That's actually a really
and
good
why
argument.
did he do such a slipshod job? Why are we so disease-prone, heartbreak-prone, and so on, close quote. But aren't you setting a pretty high standard? Aren't you saying, in effect, either Stephen Meyer can explain all the mysteries of the human heart?
Aren't you setting a pretty high standard for God? Yes. Yes, we are.
I mean, he's God. He can do literally anything.
Based on what the Bible says and what most Christians will tell you, yes, it's not that high of a standard either. It's a compelling question.
Let's remember, God is literally omnipotent. He can do anything.
Mm-hmm.
If God decided to make creation that could not have heartbreak, for instance, because that was in there, it would be equally as easy as making a creation that is prone to heartbreak. They are equally easy things for an omnipotent being.
Mm-hmm.
So you just have, you have to ask, like, why? Why do it this way? Why not some other way? Why have this? But actually, funny enough, I'm actually finding myself agreeing with that part of the analysis. Like, yeah, if God did this and God is all powerful, why does his creation suck?
Well,
why is he so bad at creating things?
Deemwing also said this. So it's because we all drive cars and we know that God can do anything, but he can't do anything about iron chariots. That's
fair enough.
His kryptonite.
I'm actually kind of curious to hear what Steve's response to this is.
Okay, let's continue.
Or he's not allowed to say anything. That is to say, the difference between a purely materialistic view that all that we see around us came about purely as a matter of chance, and Stephen's view that there is intelligence, however little we can say about it, however little we understand what we mean by that, that's still a fundamental finding.
The question is whether the world
that wasn't what he asked at all
meets your standard of intelligence. Whether the design that we
it's also not. Can you please stop saying that everything got here by chance, because that is not what happened. Well, that is what the straw man you want to put up. So put up the right dichotomy or don't put up one at all.
The interviewer is getting so emotional about this.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if he's like a preacher or something interviewing them for the Hoover Institute, because he
makes videos for PragerU, so I'd say he's getting upset because someone just attacked his God.
Maybe because he's like, Meyer is sitting there and he's fielding questions and whatnot, but he's not getting butthurt because people don't agree with him. The interviewer is getting butthurt, That's what it looks like, which is very weird. But also, that's not what Gelernter said. Like, Gelernter said, why did God create this shoddy creation To which the interviewer responded, but isn't it more important that we know about God? Like, that's not what he said. That's a completely different issue than what Gelernter brought up. That is totally irrelevant.
Well, if
I
you
don't know. Am
if you
I
attack
way out there on this?
if you attack God, what you need to do is deflect immediately and go to a completely different point, because we can't attack God, especially not on our show, on our channel. That we can't have that
Because
happen.
I want Meyer to answer the question of, okay, if God did this, why is he so bad at everything? That's what I want Meyer to answer. So let's see if he does.
Because he hadn't created Darwin yet. Sorry.
Maybe.
We see is in fact an intelligent design or a total mess. When I look at the world at large, I see a mess. When I look at the mind of man, I see a worse mess. I see a creature as likely to do bad as good, or more likely.
Okay.
I see many creatures who are fated to die out without leaving any contribution that we can associate with value, not even becoming oil or something like that. I don't look at the world as we know it as more likely the result of intelligence than random playing around, than just random taking your chances. I think if you took your chances, you'd come up with a mess like the world.
Everybody's giving him the
You'd have
stink
some
eye.
lucky guys. There's some really great people. There's some beautiful
Well, the funny
cities
thing
like
is,
Florence.
let's pause
They're
for a
all
moment. The funny thing is, like, on the one hand, yeah, I think saying, hearing him say, "Oh, it's a random chance," that's a very bad descriptor. But at the same time, on the other hand, the point he's making is kind of fair.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, I mean, he's right. Most organisms will die out, leaving no descendants. You know, they'll die a horrible death or whatever. Like, yeah, where's the intelligent design in that? I kind of agree.
Yeah.
With that asset. No, the other thing is, I'm also curious, and I'm thinking about this from like RJ's, the way RJ thinks about things. If he thinks not evolution, and he thinks not intelligent design, how does he think life got here? By what process?
Mm-hmm.
I'm very curious. Now, he probably won't answer because that's not their job at the Discovery Institute. But I'm very curious to think, like, where he thinks new species come from. I don't know. Because clearly he's not a creationist, obviously.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what does he think?
I have many moments ago, I mentioned that I was looking up some papers regarding the argument about Douglas X paper. Like,
right.
Did you remember how long the amino acid chain was that he calculated? I don't remember how long it was. Like 100 nucleotides or 100
something like
amino
that.
Acids?
Yeah, it was like 150, I think.
Oh, 150, yeah. But one thing that's often underappreciated is that shorter sequences of amino acids, like even those that don't fold into proteins, can still do an interesting function. Like, for example, I have a paper here where they analyzed a common motif among ATP or NTP aces. And it's a motif called the Walker A motif. What they hypothesize is that the Walker A motif is like a very ancient peptide, which had some general functions, but not before the emergence of protein. And what they did was they synthesized this motif of only 55 residues, like much shorter than the ones that the Douglas X calculated. So only 55 amino acids, and it still could perform many different functions, like even binding to RNA, like RNA polymers, even. So and such. So I will link the paper here in the chat. There you go.
Okay.
And there was also another recent. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I didn't say anything. I said nice.
Oh, there's also another recent paper by Nick Lane and colleagues. And there's another thing also often underappreciated is that even single amino acids can have interesting functions. Like in this paper, with Nick Lane and colleagues, they show that cysteine can cause redox active iron sulfur clusters to assemble themselves just by cysteine alone in the presence of an iron source and a sulfur source. This is very interesting. And this is actually a funny story behind it. Like I think almost a year ago or so, like Otangelo asked me how complex clusters can form without proteins. And
Was that a
was
year
like,
ago? Oh my goodness.
Yeah. And then I was like, oh, I now remember this recent paper by Nick Lane that showed that it's relatively easy actually to form these structures even without proteins. And Otangelo was really upset about that.
Was that really a year ago? My goodness.
Let's see.
Why does time continue to move forward?
I did
recently
recently
not a year
put
ago.
on my
No,
channel.
it's-
Nestle, can I finish? Can I finish, please?
Yeah.
On my channel, I did recently post the Sermon of the Mountains, which is something Jesus
Peter, are you
never
trying to get
said.
attacked by your dog?
Your dog will be
He's
very
already
upset about
coming.
that. Keep
Sorry,
doing
I
that.
forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's keep going.
All right.
Sorts of wonderful
Michelangelo
things.
down in the valley, right?
There are wonderful things, but on the whole, I would fail this world if I were grading it. And this is an important point in the Talmud, by the way. I won't make that. There's a famous argument between Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai, two schools of thought who lived at the same time, famous for disagreeing about everything. One of them was a lot like David. But there's only one question on which they ever agreed, and that question was, is it good that the earth was created? Is it good that the universe was created? Is it good that it happened? And Hillel says, and Shammai agrees with him, no, it's a catastrophe. If we had to go back and do it all again, we'd have to tell the Almighty, don't do it. The suffering outweighs.
Isn't there like a joke?
All right.
Isn't there a joke in
Stephen?
Hitchhiker's Guide to the
I love-
Galaxy that's like
I love how he's
the universe was
wow.
created, and I think there was a joke in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that was like the universe was created and it was generally agreed that was a bad thing. Wasn't that in there? Something like that. But that's what that made me think of. So
It was designed by a committee, and the committee decided that it was a failure afterwards.
yes, absolutely. Okay, yeah.
So if it's intelligent design, it wasn't that intelligent.
I look at it a little differently. I see two things when I look at nature. I see evidence of design, or aboriginal design,
Aboriginal meaning?
from the beginning, in different groups of organisms.
From the get-go.
But you also see evidence.
For a moment there, I thought that God is an Australian, but okay. Aboriginal design. You know, the only one. I'm gonna get trashed by Artemis because I'm apparently not funny. So.
Of decay. And that's also something that's consistent with when designers make things, then there's this thing we call entropy. And I think here a theological perspective does help, because I think
That's not entropy.
from the Judeo-Christian perspective, you would expect to see both evidence of original creation or original design, but you would also expect to see that something's gone wrong in nature as well. And I think we see both. So my theological perspective.
Okay. I have
Wait,
to
so
jump
is
in.
he-
I have to jump in. No. Something didn't go wrong. If you're going to see this from the Judeo-Christian perspective, then your God on purpose changed it. You know, the omnibenevolent God you're advocating for, he on purpose made everything go wrong. It's called the fall.
So
look it up.
What it seems like Meyer is saying here is, you guys remember a few moments ago when he said that this had nothing to do with like religion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that a thing he said a few
Yeah.
minutes ago?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He was like, this isn't about religion. And then as soon as he's asked, why does
Well,
the intelligent design look unintelligent, his immediate response was, well, think about it from a religious perspective. Like,
no,
my dude,
the Judeo-Christian perspective, specifically.
well, okay, the point I was making is just that he tries to frame this like it's a scientific issue, and then as soon as he doesn't know, like, have a scientific answer, he immediately jumps to Christianity.
But he has
because
to. He has to.
Yeah, maybe.
His followers are predominantly Christians who are using him as an argument for their God. Now, just a few minutes ago, Gelernter attacked his God. He has to come up with some kind of defense because he's going to lose followers and therefore lose income. That's it.
Yeah.
That's
all
there is to
Jamie
it.
E found it. Of course, Jamie E found it. The story so far: in the beginning, the universe was created. This has made a lot of people very angry and been widely considered as a bad move. Yes. Thank you, Jamie. We appreciate you. Also, I want to point out Smitty's comment: wasps lay eggs in caterpillars because God sent the serpent to tempt Eve. Yes, very true. But seriously,
this is something we noted in the old video that we made about suboptimal design. If I had to get the title correctly, we cannot judge whether something's a good or bad design because we cannot know the intentions of the designer unless we can if maybe he had a lot of fun and he just wanted to see things go wrong. I don't know. You can make up all kinds of excuses to account for things like that. It's but of course, for the same reason, they cannot also claim that it's a good design as well. Like they cannot make the judgment unless they have some influence about the desires of the designer, which they cannot do because then they would dabble into a religion.
When it comes,
that's heresy.
Neslick, when it comes to the desires of the designer, let me pose something that I've never seen anyone use in a conversation with a Christian. So in the Bible, it is said that the serpent talked to Eve and said, "If you will eat of this fruit, you will become as gods, as God, as in you will know." The difference. You will know good from evil. Eve eats from the fruit. Adam eats from the fruit. They both decide after they ate from the fruit that they were naked and that wasn't good. Apparently, God knows that is not good, yet he never offered them any clothes. I think that says something about the desires of God. He just wants to have his own personal Pornhub.
And demonetized. No.
Yeah, well, but so what is the story behind this? I mean, if it's bad to run around naked, why didn't God figure that out? Just wondering.
I don't know. I do not know. I do not know the mind of God.
The way I read it is it's a parable about innocence versus knowledge. I think I don't think it was meant to be taken literally. Of course,
probably not.
People disagree, but yeah.
Yeah, don't ask Ken Ham about that because you're going to get a different answer.
I just read it. It just says right here.
Yeah. I have this book. Okay, continue.
Yes, continue.
It does inform my ability to answer that question about the things in nature that don't look so well. It's interesting, for example, the problem of virulent bacteria, nasty bugs. They are they are invariably the result of a loss of information as a result of the mutation.
Oh, there you go.
So the very process that the Darwinists have invoked to explain the origin of good design is actually, I think, responsible for the evidence of decay. So I think this is the question in philosophy known as
all
theodicy,
pathogenic bacteria.
Yes, the problem.
In his mind, are just like free living bacteria that just lost information, whatever that means?
Oh, actually, we discussed an example of like in our horizontal gene transfer video. We discussed an example of when an E. coli bacteria gains a gene carried by a bacteriophage, and that made it resistant, or that made it more pathogenic regarding the Zika toxin, if I'm not mistaken. That's horizontal gene transfer. It's a gain of information in one bacteria to another. Like they share genes all the time. So yeah, it's not just losing not just losing genes. Sometimes, but not always.
Why is everything they say so dumb? Why? Why is it so dumb, Nestlig?
I don't know. It's keeping up pretense, I believe.
I guess you're right. All right, we can keep going.
And so I think there's ways of thinking about that, but but for me, the evidence of design is powerful. It's ubiquitous in both in life and at the level of physics, of things like the fine tuning of the laws and constants of physics. So I see a very powerful signal of design, but I don't deny
appreciate that
the decay
that
and the
no one else
suffering in
agrees
the
with
world.
him.
And I have a theological way of understanding
If
that.
the bad viruses are always a result of defect.
Did you catch that, Jackson?
Which part?
I have a theological way of understanding all of that.
Yeah, I heard him say that. Yeah.
From the guy who pretends
Also-
to be working for an organization that isn't pushing biblical creationism.
Yeah.
Also, like Stan Cannonell brings up this example of like the evolution of the human HIV, where you have like one protein that's not able to bind to a human protein, but it was able to bind to. But then it evolved, and then it was able to bind. So like three mutations was needed to go from that. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Is that loss of information? It's
What
How
even
do
is
you-
information, and how does one
Yeah,
lose
oh.
it?
yeah, like a note how they never define what they mean by that, and they never give an example. They just
Right.
state it.
Right, exactly. Yep, everything's loss of information. Well, why don't you define it for us so we can actually? I mean, it's the same with kinds. It's the same, information, genetic entropy. If they actually define, they give us like an actual something or a thing to test, then they run the risk of it failing horrendously, and then they have to come up with a new position. So just don't define anything, and just
Yeah,
kind of be like,
it's-
you know what I mean when I say that,
You use a few keywords that sounds impressive, but you don't have any substance behind it. So you cannot sink your teeth in anything. Like it's
Right.
very clever. I mean, think about it. Like you make a statement that will wow many people, but then it's very difficult to respond to because it's nothing there really.
Right? Yeah. Like what do you actually mean when you say that? You know what we mean. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
That's really wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Like it's exactly.
Basically, yeah.
All
Alright,
right,
keep
moving
going.
on.
Yeah.
That fits the theology perfectly. The theology suggests that good is the entity, evil has no independent existence, it's always a defect or a shortcoming in the good, right? Isn't that right?
I think it does fit, and there's quite a lot of microbiology that actually supports that viewpoint.
Back
No,
to
there
you,
really isn't.
Dr. Gelernter.
What are okay? Do you guys remember the Richard Lenski E. coli experiment? The thing that the new function, the ability to metabolize citrate under aerobic conditions, was a gene duplication followed by a
Right.
few other point mutations elsewhere. Right. So no. What are you
This is
talking
very-
about?
And it's a very complex story behind. Like it wasn't just a gene duplication. I think there were also other mutations necessary in order to facilitate.
Yeah, there
that.
were
Like,
other stabilizing mutations.
Yeah. Also, like there were a few potentiating mutations that allowed this for the. It's a very complex sequence of mutations that are necessary. So it was, but again, we need to know how you define the terms in order to say that. Like sure, we can say, oh, it's a duplication, so it's not a loss. But then they will say, aha, but it's still a loss, because how do you define it? How do you define a loss?
Right. Yeah.
Like,
absolutely.
oh, now they will always produce, now they will always metabolize citrate, like on the open list. So it's a loss of specificity, they will say, like something like that.
Yeah.
Like they all, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a very clever, like, I think maybe Dr. Stan Carnell also pointed out, like you can like if a protein evolves to like if a protein, it will metabolize one substrate and then it will evolve to be able to catalyze the same substrate and also substrate B, and they will say like, oh, it's a loss of specificity, so it's a loss of information. But then you do the inverse. Now it is only able to metabolize A, and then they will say, oh, it's also a loss of information because you lose the ability to metabolize this thing. Like it's a complete bullshit.
Heads I win, tails you lose.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there is no way to ever be correct. You can only ever lose.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what was it? I think it was in actually the debate, the intro to my debate with Standing for Truth, where we wrote the thing about like,
yeah,
point out, here are examples of information increasing by, like, if I just assume I know what information means, which is like function basically, then like, okay, here are some examples, but because they don't define it. But then as soon as you give them an example, they're like, oh no, here's a bunch of other reasons why that doesn't work. Like, well, why didn't you provide that in the first place? Why did you have to wait until I gave you examples? It seems like everything is very ad hoc and contrived, right? It doesn't seem like you actually care about any of this.
And I would like to know, like, what would new information look like? Like, given a hypothetical scenario of that would actually count as an example, like 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 would a de novo gene count as a new gene? Like, oh no, that doesn't count because de novo still comes from pre-existing DNA, so it was already there. Something like then they will go that way. Like, oh no, it's all right.
It's almost like they don't care about the truth. It's just I don't know. I mean, in Standing for Truth's case,
it's almost like they want something to appear out of nothing, which is very ironic because that's what they believe.
Yeah. Anyway, all right, we can keep going.
Moving on. Yeah.
The great Jewish minds in history saying that creation is bad, when the beginning of the Hebrew scripture is God saw that it was good.
See, look at how angry he's getting.
We're departing from Darwin just a bit, but I can't resist. I can't resist that one.
It's absolutely true that he saw that it was good, and both of the two creation stories agree that the world is a good thing, and yet immediately, as far as the Bible is concerned, men start screwing it up. From Adam and Eve to Cain and Abel to Noah and his ark, to the stories of the patriarchs and the world in which they lived, to Moses who leads Israel to the promised land, and the people are a bitch. They're constantly fighting, arguing, struggling, being a nuisance in every conceivable way. So God creates a perfect world. On the other hand, he hasn't created a perfect creature. That's why we are obligated to study and struggle. Study the good and try to struggle in that direction.
God didn't create a perfect world. He created a good world. Not a perfect one. Because otherwise it would have said that God saw that it was perfect. Which also negates the fact that God created it. Because if God is a perfect being, then first of all, he wouldn't need a world to create. Because you can't add anything to perfection to make it more perfect. And if he would have added anything, it would have been perfect. Because if he's settling for imperfection, then he's not perfect. So no matter how you look at this, it's not going to look good for your God.
Yeah.
Also, I remember the like the protein in the HIV is called the VPU, and then it binds to a human tetherin. And I don't remember all the details. You can look up Dr. Stan Cardinal, like a creation myth, on this channel. Like he talks a lot about it. And I think it was like originally the protein binds to a part of the primate tetherin, but that part in humans was lost. So because of that loss, the HIV could not bind, or the VPU protein cannot bind to human tetherin that way. But then it evolved a new binding site, a new way to bind by multiple mutations. It was necessary to do that. So it got a new binding site for that. Again, is it new information?
On that note,
again, that's sorry to repeat it.
On that note, Nestle, did you see in the newspapers last week that German and Dutch have found a cure for HIV, which I think is a pretty big deal.
For all HIV or just some?
I think, like I think I've heard about that some that there's another person who was declared cured.
8 in total at the moment.
They haven't been tested positive for a very long time, so they think another person was cured, but I don't think it's a proof of a cure yet.
From the article that I read was that they had at least one person who was definitely cured. That there were 8 in total
one is
at the moment.
a very small sample size.
There were 8 in total, which was according to the people who are working on this, was a breakthrough. So,
well, hey, if it works, I mean, if it works, yeah.
Let's hope it works. Continue.
Yeah.
But I want to say, I have no theological argument with Steve. My argument is with people who dismiss intelligent design without considering it. It seems to me, it's widely dismissed in my world of academia as some sort of theological put-up job. It's an absolutely serious scientific argument. In fact, it's the first and most obvious. And
it's like he says that, and yet the very first thing that Steve goes to is, well, I have a theological imperative. Well, there you go. You can't say it's not theologically motivated and also be like, as a Christian, I believe. Go ahead.
I see now like a Nature article where they like it's the 5th person to be declared cured from HIV, and this case is the 3rd case where they have performed a transplant of virus-resistant cells, and it's a very risky procedure. So it's a 3rd case of success.
Nice.
Of that procedure to transplant HIV-resistant stem cells from a donor. So
that's awesome.
And it may be a beginning, but of course, 3 patients. It's still a long way to go. When you only have 3 success cases. So yeah. All right.
Well, it would depend on seeing how many people got this implanted in the first place. I mean, if it's only these 3 people, then it's a huge success. If it's 300 people, then it's completely different. I couldn't find any of that, by the way. Continue?
Yeah.
That's the one that comes to mind. It's got to be dealt with intellectually, not by the bigotry, the anti-religious bigotry, which is one of the most important facts of the intellectual world in the United States, in the West generally today.
The case for intelligent design is not based on, we can have a theological discussion as we've had a bit here, but the case for intelligent design isn't an interpretation or a deduction from the scriptural text.
Right.
It's an inference from biological evidence. And in that sense, it's different.
And he makes that assertion, and you say, yep, he's
I
being
want to
honest
remind everyone.
And anybody can check
Not only that, but
I want to remind everyone of a phrase. I'm going to write it here in our chat. hold on one sec. I want to remind everyone of this phrase, which appeared in an intelligent design textbook.
Yeah.
The phrase is C design proponentist.
Someone beat
The
you to
reason
that earlier in chat.
Oh, did they?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, the reason that word exists, or that phrase, whatever, is a person copy and pasted all instances of creationists and creationism with intelligent design proponent, or sorry, with design proponent and intelligent design. Like literally copy and pasted.
Was this a macro command, or did they actually manually go through every word, like copy paste? Like, I don't know if it was a macro command.
Well, either way, they ended up with this hilarious and extremely revealing typo.
Oh, but when was this book made? In the 80s, right? So they didn't have any computer. Did they have any computers to make a macro command like that? I don't think
it was
so.
like 80s or 90s, something like that. I don't remember exactly
So
when, but
the book was written.
point of it
The
is
book was
still-
written in the early '80s, and then I think it was 1985, when they were no longer allowed to teach creationism. That is when they changed the wording, and so in the Kitzmiller versus Dover case, they wanted all of the transcripts, all of the I don't know what the word is. So the entire book over several years. So, and that's when I think they provided that digitally, which gave someone the opportunity to run a search, and then there was a typo, and that's where it got translated in C design proponentist, and that's how they found it. And they found it at the exact same year when they banned creationism from schools, which is when they completely changed the wording in the book. Everything else was still the same.
Because I think that was the Edwards v. Aguillard case, wasn't it? That banned creationism in schools?
Yes.
Which was in my home state. Represent. Go Louisiana. You know what? For anyone who doesn't live here, you may not have heard it, but we have a phrase in Louisiana, and that phrase is "Thank God for Mississippi." So,
I tweeted about this earlier. In my local paper, we had a headline that conservative DeSantis is on a ram course with Donald Duck. I thought that was a brilliant headline. It made the local papers.
Yeah. That's
also
awesome.
in the article that I just read, it's the CCR Delta 32 mutation that made they use those resistant cells. They used those cells from a donor who had that mutation that made them resistant against HIV. So we have another example of how evolution is used in medicine.
That's awesome.
It's of course, there is still a lot of work to do to make this applicable, but it seems to have promising signs at the very least.
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. That's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can keep going.
Jake Nelson says, anyone else thinking that Stephen Meyer looks like Matt Powell in 20 years? He may have a point.
Maybe. It's possible.
Yeah.
He might.
Okay. Continue.
But it's a stretch.
He's got a little too. Meyer has a little too much gray in his hair. So for him to be Matt Powell in 20 years, I don't know. All right. Anyway,
I think it's an important assertion because outside the scientific world, one might not know how ideologically bent the world of science, parts of the world of science are becoming. I say it with real sorrow, and it's certainly not true of every scientist or even of most scientists, but we have a cautionary tale in what happened to our English departments and our history departments. It could happen to us.
All right.
God forbid.
What happened to the English department?
Questions here.
No, like legit question. What happened in English? What does he mean by that? Does anyone know? Dalton, we went to the same schools. What does it mean? What does that mean?
I have no clue.
I don't understand. I don't know what he means when he says that. Like,
Dalton is more
history-
Dalton is more like me. Anyone else think the interviewer resembles Steve Martin? Yeah, he does. He definitely does.
Yeah, he kind of does. History, though, is very propagandized. I know in America, I'm sure in the world, but the history we learn is very propagandized. The founding fathers were like as close to perfection as you could be. The Vietnam War was definitely not our fault. A bunch of other crazy crap. The CIA definitely didn't tell MLK to off himself. So I don't know. I also don't know what he means by the history department. I'm very curious. Like, Jamie E., you're our research person. Can you find out what he means by that? I'm very concerned.
And I have one
Okay,
for
anyway.
for Jake Nelson and Dalton, because they won't be able to unsee this. If you look at Gelernter, it looks like he has a gray beard that someone just stuck on his chin because it doesn't work with the rest of his hair. But that's just me noticing that. It has nothing to do with whether or not I like the guy. It just, I can't unsee that.
Oh, Dalton's right. Maybe he's like Keith Olber. Actually, you know what? I do see the Keith Olbermann. Yeah, I see that. Really, Smitty. That's funny. Because ours was just like, yep, it happened, and then we entered the war, and it's like, well, what happened? We don't talk about it, So I didn't really learn about it until like years later when I was reading stuff about the Vietnam War. When I read about it, was like, oh, really? Huh. Yeah, but yeah, Dalton may be right. Maybe Gelernter's like, it's wokeism or something. The woke are taking over. I don't know. He didn't really say anything. He just kind of said it happened in the English and history departments, but like he didn't hint at what he might be referring to, which is why I'm so curious.
Again, sounding like you're saying a lot, but there is nothing behind it really. When you don't know how to respond to that. Like you cannot even begin.
There's a word for that. It's a deepity.
Yeah, exactly.
That's funny, Smitty. That is funny. You. That's funny. Oh well.
Okay, continue.
Oh well. Yeah, deepity. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, you guys are. Yeah. Yep, we can go.
I'm going to quote you once again, David Gelernter. Darwinism is no longer just a scientific theory, but the basis of a world view and an emergency religion for the many troubled souls who need one. Close quote. Now.
No.
That must suck to have evolution as a religion.
No, it's not a religion.
Mm-hmm.
It is not a religion. It's also not the basis of the worldview.
Can you imagine how much it would suck to like have evolution as your religion? Because like you can't care about anything. Nothing matters. The only thing that matters is that which is like selectively beneficial. Like that would be a terrible religion.
And that doesn't even make sense, because it's like it's a descriptive theory, and to have it descriptive, like it's almost like how do you form a worldview based on gravity? Like, oh, we must ban air travel now because it violates gravity. It makes no sense at all.
Right. Yeah. Very strange. Yeah.
It's like having a religion.
It's projection. That's all it is. It's projection. We are two sides of the same coin. No, we are not.
Yeah, you're right. It is, and that's one of Aaron's foundational falsehoods of creationism is like projection. Like evolution's a religion. That they're trying to make it so that evolution is like equally as bad as,
If your position is scientific, my position is also scientific, and if my position is then yours is too.
Yeah,
it's the same.
And so the way I always counter that, because one of the few, no, not few, one of the people who will always tell you that evolution is a religion is Kent Hovind. And my response to that is that if that is your argument, if you want to say that well understood science is a religion, that means that you think that that somehow makes it look like something that could be 100% false. If that is the case, then let's have a look at your religion, because now that can be 100% false. I would agree with that, actually.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, it's not a good art. It doesn't make your religion look good if that is your argument, because that would entail the idea that you think that your religion is fake. Just saying.
Yeah. Oh well. All righty. Let's keep
Continue.
Lots of people have invested lots of energy in discrediting Dr. Berlinski and Dr. Meyer over the years. You, Dr. Gelernter, are a professor of unquestioned competence and achievement in computer science. And computer science is with it, baby. It is right at the middle of the new world we're creating. It's technocracy. We don't have to ask ultimate questions. We just have to deal with zeros and ones. It's totally rational. It's producing a cornucopia of new wealth. And now Gelernter goes over to the other side?
He's been with us all along.
So what's the reception been
Traitor.
at New Haven and in your profession, in academia? I mean, that's a serious question. What's going on? Okay.
I have to make a distinction between the way I've been treated personally, which is in a very courteous and collegial way by my colleagues at Yale. They're nice guys, and I like them. They're my friends. On the other hand, when I look at their intellectual behavior, what they publish, and much more important, what they tell their students, Darwinism has indeed passed beyond a scientific argument as far as they are concerned. You take your life in your hands to challenge it intellectually.
Yes.
They will destroy you if you challenge it.
I mean, there's a
Now,
reason for that.
I haven't been destroyed. I'm not a biologist, and I don't claim to be an authority on this topic. But
And yet, here you
a
are.
book review is not the same as a book. It's sort of a satellite around the book. Anyway, it remains the case that I have nothing personally to charge my colleagues with. But what I've seen in their behavior intellectually and at colleges across the West is nothing approaching free speech on this topic.
I kind of like that his response was, well, nothing really happened to me. I mean, he just said, like, well, nothing happened to me in particular. I'm not a biologist. No one really cares what I think. It's like, well, yeah, you're right. We don't care what you think because you have no relevant expertise. So, okay, I don't know. I don't know. I just thought that was kind of funny because so often creationists cry. Sal Cordova does this in like every stream. He's like, or at least every time I've interacted with him, he's like, nobody takes me seriously for my creationism. Well, yeah, because you're a creationist. That's why no one takes you seriously.
Also,
actually didn't really do that.
He's relatively speaking, he's taken very seriously by at least the internet community. Like you voted for him to be the number one the S tier online.
Okay, listen. In fairness, as Dapper pointed out, or Dan, it was one of them. We're talking about like the bottom of the barrel already. So it's the best of the bottom of the barrel. Like, that's not a compliment,
And in all fairness, all of that happened before he went into the debate with Ra and then claimed that Noah had 2 cells on the ark.
But so at any rate, that's like, yeah, he's right. Gelernter's right when he says, you do take your life into your hand. Well, okay. You take your life into your hands scientifically, if you're a biologist, if you say like, I don't believe, I don't agree with the literal century and a half of evidence that is accumulated for evolution or the old age of the Earth, right? Like, if at this point you decide I am disagreeing with the body of scientific research that has existed for over a century, yeah, you don't deserve to be taken seriously. It is one thing to be skeptical, but these guys are not skeptics. They are deniers. If you are skeptical of evolution, then you do research into evolution, and then you become convinced that it is true.
Mm-hmm.
If you are a denier of evolution, then you read books like Stephen Meyer's, you never do research into evolution, and you just kind of assume you know everything about it, which is basically what they're doing. So they're not skeptics.
And to get back to Sal Cordova, he's the guy who talked Kent Hovind's ex-wife out of taking up Arn Ra on his challenge on teaching you about evolution to the point where you will accept it. Sal Cordova said you should cut it out and no longer participate.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't have any problem with Sal. Like, in terms of behavior, Sal has been one of the best behaved creationists that I've encountered on the internet, especially within, like, we're talking about like standing for truth's community, right? Like, almost all of them are terribly behaved, but Sal is actually pretty decently behaved. And so yeah, when it comes to all of them, that's also again why I think if we're looking at who's the best or at the top, like, I'm gonna put Sal up there among them, because just like I said, it's least bad. It's not best, it's least bad, right? That's the point. Anyway.
Okay.
Anything else?
Nope.
Okay.
So instead of last but not least, you can say least but not last.
Right,
Or
least
something
but
like
not
that.
last. Yeah, that's true. All right, we can keep going.
Basically, Sal Cordova is the guy who's scraping the bottom of the barrel from underneath.
Yeah, the
Also,
rest of them are like below the barrel.
Also, it's surprising. Like he compliments me a lot. Like, but I haven't interacted with him. I don't remember if I ever interacted with him personally or even directly. But he's still like I find it like a bit odd. Like out of nowhere, he starts complimenting me. Like, maybe he saw my comments somewhere else or something. I don't know. I don't know why. But yeah.
He's a nice guy. Sal's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Oh, and as Smitty points out, yeah, Sal broke ranks to stand up for Cindy Lincoln. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, he's a nice guy. As Dalton says, was he the guy who complained into the void about you on his subreddit? Yes, that was him. That was Sal. So anyway, but I've had nice conversations with him, so he's fine in my opinion. Anyway, okay, moving on.
A sort of bitter, fundamental, angry, outraged, violent rejection, which comes nowhere near scientific or intellectual discussion. I've seen that happen again and again. I'm a Darwinism. Don't you say a word against it, or
I'm a Darwinism.
Or I don't want to hear you, period.
Which proves that you're attacking their religion, in effect.
I am attacking their religion, and I don't blame them for being all head up. It is a big issue for them, unquestionably.
Dr. Berlinski, who holds his doctorate in philosophy, I want to depart. This isn't strictly Darwin.
I thought he was a mathematician.
I'm indulging myself. This is a quotation that has struck me as compelling for a long time, but for a long time I've thought I really want to try it on Berlinski. So here we go. Okay, I'll try you.
I'm pretty sure Berlinski's a mathematician.
Granted that reason is prior to matter, I can understand how men should come to know a lot about the universe they live in. If, on the other hand, I swallow the scientific cosmology, and for scientific cosmology, we may as well read the Darwinian theory of evolution. If I swallow the scientific cosmology, then not only can I not fit in religion, but I cannot even fit in science. Here we go. Here's the payoff on this. If minds are wholly dependent on brain.
I don't care what an author.
What does Darwinism have to do with cosmology?
C.S. Lewis was basically like Christian Deepak Chopra.
Yeah.
That's what he was. Like, this idea that he was some titan is ridiculous. From the stuff
it's basically a sophisticated or a lofty way of saying, like, oh, if you're made of atoms, then how can you trust your brain or something like that?
It's what
look at Lewis is silly.
Look at the quote that is on screen right now, Nestle. I think that is literally what you were talking about.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Yeah. I don't get it. Like, I see Christians on like Twitter talking about how great C.S. Lewis is, but I really don't get it. Like, when you read stuff like this, you just think, like, this is who you take seriously? He was a fiction writer? I mean, okay. I guess there's some parallel with the Bible there. Oops.
Well,
no, anyway.
I have to defend C.S. Lewis just a little bit, because it does say in the quote, "I cannot understand." That's probably sums you up. You cannot understand. That's it. That is your entire argument.
I mean, sure. Narnia was good, sure, but
it's also strange. Like, if you even they would acknowledge that, like, your arm is controlled by by signals that travel in the nervous system from your brain. So they're still, but they would still trust their arm for working properly, at least most of the time, unless there's some neurological issue.
Right.
Of course. So it's a strange non sequitur, in my opinion. This argument.
Nestle,
like
the man,
just because something
the
is
man made
doesn't mean you cannot trust it. Yeah.
Nestle, the man made a point, and now you start making sense. That's not nice. I mean, sorry, that was me being sarcastic.
C.S. Lewis. I don't know.
Yeah.
We're almost hitting the 2-hour mark.
That's true. We're about there. So, all right. Well, I guess we can call it for today. Unless there's anything else you guys want to add before we. What do you guys have coming up in the near future?
You have to switch on your camera, Jackson. Because
what about it?
You have to switch your camera back on. You're on screen again.
There we go. All right.
You want to see your pretty face. We want to see your pretty face.
Likely story, Buster.
Yeah.
What do you guys have going on in the near future?
Still busy, but I think I have I was pretty intrigued by your conversation with Jeremy.
Jeremy?
If I remember? Yeah, Jeremy.
Yeah.
He said that he want to have a conversation on eukaryogenesis. I would like to join the conversation because I know of some papers about that, so I can put those out there and maybe talk about that, because he seems very interesting to at least listen. So I'm pretty intrigued by somebody who doesn't agree with me but still agrees to at least listen to what you say, because that would be a very interesting conversation to have.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, he was. Well, when it came to the eukaryogenesis part of our discussion, I said my piece and he really didn't respond to it at all, which is fine. He said he wanted to do another chat later on with Dapper and me about the age of the Earth. So I'm reading a book right now that is Principles of Radiometric Dating, so I can get all of the basics of it down. I also ordered a book on sedimentology and stratigraphy, so I hope that arrives before our talk, but we'll see, I guess. So, Anyway,
well,
what about you, Peter? What you got going on?
This Sunday, I'm going to participate in another 6-hour stream on the politics Discord server, where people can come convince us whether or not a God exists. So if you want to keep up with us, there's a website that has been graciously provided by Randolph Richardson, the president of Canadian Atheists, and it is called thetheisthelpline.com. And so you can see who all are participating in this. And then on March 8th, I will be on the Politics Discord server with an AMA, which in this case apparently means
Okay.
argue about everything. The title is Argue with Peter the Tucker About Everything, which is sounds fun. I mean, I guess. I'm just flattered they asked me to do an AMA.
Yeah.
We'll see what happened. It's probably going to be a dumpster fire, but I think I might be streaming that. Not sure if I'm going to stream that on the Gonna Go For It channel. Might be we have a secondary channel gonna go for some more. That might be a better channel. I'm still not. We'll see. But I'm going to stream it live because why not?
Okay.
Yeah, and other than that, we still have a few conversations coming up. Recently had a guy on called P-Town, a young Earth creationist. He's going to have a conversation with one of the people from Arn Ra's Bible show panel. And he's also, and I think most of you will be familiar with her, Jen with one N, also wanted to have a conversation. So I'm going to host both on our show, from which I stole the title from Kent Hovind. It's called Second Opinions. I thought that was a good title to host conversations between people who are not part of the channel. So keep an eye out for that.
Heck yeah. Alrighty. I still hope to get out the lava lizard's tail in the near future. Sorry that's taking so long, everybody. It's really all I've got going on. Working on my thesis. I resubmitted my the introduction to my thesis this week to one of my advisors. So we're working on that. Fun times. All right. Well, I guess that's all for today. We'll see you guys next Thursday, same time, same place, same video. So, yeah.
Different video.
Well, bye, everybody.
Different video. Not the same one.
Oh, we almost finished?
No, I thought. Well, I was referring to the one we're in. You're referring to the one we're reviewing. Oh yeah, that would still be the same video. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if we were close to the end. I don't know how much time we have left in this video.
I could tell you that. Let's see. We have 14 minutes left in the video. So we may need.
Okay, so we're cruising right along.
Yeah, we may need a backup for the next show. So make sure you tune in.
Yeah, sometime this week I'll
see what Jackson picks for the next one.
Heck yeah. All right. Well, bye, everybody. Thank you for watching, and we will see all of you next time.
Bye, everyone.